Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, The Fear Hormone. The following is transcribed directly from documents found in an abandoned German test lab by American soldiers during the aftermath of WWII, roughly translated into English. Audio tape testing is to begin tomorrow. The team does not know what to expect. Our mission is to take new research and turn it into a weapon for the war front. It has recently been discovered that the brain releases a previously unknown chemical when feeling fear. For obvious reasons, this test could be extremely dangerous. To test, subjects have been selected, and from what we were told, they were sentenced to death, but are going to instead be used as subjects in this experiment. Subjects are given a table with 2 chairs, a cot with a mattress, a stocked bookcase, a notebook and pen, and a bathroom area consisting of a toilet, a sink, and a mirror. Food and water are given through a small C-level opening. I have nothing more to report at this time. Written document tests subject A and B are being given the chemical in a small dose. Mixed with water tests, subject A has consumed the water and has shown no visible changes in mood or behavior. Test subject B has refused to drink the water. He has been forcefully given the same dosage, but by direct injection. He gave some resistance, but was easily controlled and injected shortly afterward. He seemed nervous, almost paranoid, and jumped whenever he heard sudden noises. Subjects have been told to try and remain active or sleep, not just idle. Written document. It took time, but we have developed a gas-based version of the chemical. If shown effective on subjects, this could become a valuable weapon. Dosage has been increased slightly. Neither subjects were aware that the chemical was being let into the room. After a few minutes, subject A stopped reading and began to look around the room cautiously. After an estimated hour, he began to read again. Subject B immediately responded. He opened the notebook for the first time and wrote, "What is going on? Stop whispering to me. I do not want to hear you," onto a piece of paper, ripped it out of the notebook, and slipped it under the door. No reply was given. Written, we are going to observe the effects of long-term, low amounts of the gas on subject A, and we are going to observe the effects of a short, high amount period of the gas on subject. The results are shocking to say the least. Subject A progressively became more unstable. He stopped reading, would not eat, and avoided the mirror at all costs. He suddenly became very aggressive and threw a heavy book at the mirror with surprising force, shattering it. Subject B's reaction was more curious. He began staring at the second chair, but he was not looking at the chair. He was looking as if he was making eye contact with someone sitting in the chair. Something seems amiss, but we are definitely getting result. The F-Rare will be most pleased. Vocal recording. The voice sounds distressed. We did not want this. What did we do to deserve God's vengeance such as this? Subject B escaped from his cell. The chair he was staring at was thrown across the room, straight into the viewing glass, instantly shattering it. It was 5 inches thick, reinforced. He didn't even touch the chair. He has escaped out of the hole made by the IP. A very loud scream drowns out anything being said. HELPME, HESRIPP. A loud crunch. The vents are leaking the gas into the rest of the facility. The power has gone offline, and he has killed off all the go. Oh my lord. Oh, no. plese. There is a loud, beastly roar, and sounds of struggle. The rest of the tape is silence. One final note was found. It seemed to be hastily written, and barely legible. They are dead, every one of them. I hear him in the walls. I hear him whispering to me, yes, yes, please come and take me away. I want no more of TH, and the note ends there. The rest is soaked in blood to read. In April 131,944, Allied soldiers found an abandoned German laboratory with its own leader sealed shut using explosive charges. They forcefully entered the laboratory, wondering what was so important that the Germans had to lock it away. They found 13 bodies, 12 of which had matching lab coats on, mangled to pieces, and in one case ripped straight in half. The 13th body had nondescript, brown clothing, and no head. A larger-scale investigation was launched later by the Germans as to determine what had happened, but was cancelled after many German soldiers absolutely refused to return to the laboratory, even if threatened with their lives to this day. Nobody knows what happened to B, but he is presumed dead. The second story, Curiosity Killed the Cat. I've been held against my will in this room for about 4 days. Luckily I have enough food and water to sustain myself. By now you're probably wondering what exactly is keeping me from leaving. Well, here's the story as best as I can remember. My family seems as though they can't decide what house suits them best. Therefore, I end up having to move quite frequently. It never bothered me. I actually enjoyed it. I mean, some say variety is the spice of life, right? Anyway, about a week ago, we moved from our house in Nevada to a new house in Seattle. I was content with this, considering I am absolutely in love with Seattle. The house we moved into seemed pretty nice. It was a fairly new neighborhood. The neighbors seemed nice to when we moved in. It seemed that the entire street came to welcome us to their neighborhood. I even made some friends, Jack and Anthony Jack, and Anthony were brothers and their parents didn't pay very good attention to them. So when summer came around we ended up spending most of it just hanging out outside, sometimes venturing from the placidness of our neighborhood, but that was only on rare occasions. This was a rare occasion. It was about 11 in the morning, the time when we usually met up outside. I left my house and was soon greeted by a punch on the shoulder from Anthony and a hey from Jack. We just talked about school and how we despised it and wished the summer lasted forever. We finally decided to venture off from our neighborhood in search of something interesting. We came to a house that looked far older than the surrounding houses. I asked about it, and Jack's eyes lit up. He informed me that the house was built, that the It sounded interesting, so I asked them about getting in. They said I wasn't ready yet. I didn't really know what they meant by that. I was so nuffy then. The remaining weeks of summer came and went on the last day. Jack and Anthony said I was ready for the house. I was pretty excited, not knowing what lay ahead. It was a little bit of a walk to the house, so I packed a bag with some water in case I needed it. I met up with Jack and Anthony. They didn't seem as excited about the house as I did, but I figured they had already been there time and had already lost interest. We finally arrived and I was ready to just go in. Since I was a little kid, Mystery intrigued me like nothing else. I remember one venture into the basement of one of my old houses. I didn't find anything interesting, but I fell on the steps and scraped my knee. I never went down there again. Anthony seemed to know how to get in. We went to the back of the house and crawled through a hole barely big enough for us to fit. We were inside at first. I saw a table and figured some teens that hung out. You frequently decided to put it here. I was pretty thirsty, so I got a bottle out of my pack and took a long drink. That was when I noticed the fine china and elegant chairs. I asked Jack and Anthony where they had come from, but they shrugged their shoulders and we continued. I accidentally knocked over a plate and it shattered on the ground. At that moment I swore I heard something scratch against the wooden wall behind me. When I looked back, nothing was there, no scratch marks or anything. I disregarded it and went into the kitchen. There was more fine china again, but nothing else worth looking at. When I went into the living room, I saw a television set, a couch, a coffee table, and the door didn't look like the other doors in the house. It was as black as obsidian and had a glass handle. Me being myself, I decided to check it out. My two companions strongly advised me not to even look at it, but I just had to. Jack and Anthony decided to leave and said I was being stupid. I ignored them and focused my full attention on the door. I walked over and touched the handle, and my hand jumped back. It was cold as ice. I grabbed a rag and put it over my hand and turned the handle. When the door opened, I looked in. I couldn't see anything. The only thing I noticed was an extremely putrid odor. I then felt a sharp pain on the back of my head and I was out. When I awoke, I noticed I was in a dimly lit room. I was lying on what looked to be a blood-stained mattress. The odor was back. I saw some bones in the corner. Some were human. Others I couldn't figure out what creature they came from. I then saw something in the corner. It was a face. I got up and walked slowly towards it. When I came into its view, its eyes opened and saw me. It said nothing. All it did was regurgitate a note. Written on the note were the words, "Curiosity killed the cat." The third story, Nuclear Meltdown. On July 16, 1945, the United States government executed Project Trinity. Project Trinity was the first nuclear weapons test in history, taking place in the New Mexican desert. The military, specifically the Army, was in charge of conducting this weapons test and ensuring they found a completely secluded location to do so, a place with virtually no inhabitants. What the Army failed to do was to completely check each and every cave and ravine in that desolate wasteland. But we'll come back to that soon enough. Let me tell you a different story in order to set the proper mood. This is the story of what happens when things don't go quite according to plan. There are certain times in history when a baby is born, different from the rest. Some are naturally more intelligent. Some are simply more attractive. Some, however, have differences that are not appealing. Extra fingers or toes, for example. The lack of an eye, a humpback. All of these things are often called mutations by the modern world. Back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, mutants were the pariah of society. Parents would abandon them at churches. People would jeer and spit at them as they passed by. It was only in solitude or in groups of similar persons that they found peace. Communes began springing up in different parts of the country, all secluded parts of the country, such as deserts, underground caves, or small islands off the coast. These were the refuges for the outcasts of society. That all changed in 1945. Project Trinity was the starting point for a couple of significant things. Obviously, it was the trigger to the end of WWII and the massive arms race against the USSR during the Cold War. Also, it was the beginning of a massive genocide you may otherwise never have known about. Near the blast site of Trinity was a community of nearly 45 mutants. All of them were killed instantly by the destructive power unleashed in that first successful blast. In 1946, there were 2 more test fires on a communes in the Marshall Islands. In 1951, another blast in the Pacific region caused severe radiation sickness and death to another large group of mutants. 1952, Operation Ivy Might killed over 150 mutants on another small Pacific island. The final documented test detonation took place on March 1, 1950 for this blast, codenamed Castle Bravo, was the most detrimental of all. After discovering that many mutants had moved back to the Marshall Islands, the government decided it was time to make their point finalized. They detonated a 15 megaton bomb in shallow water, just off the island shore. Radioactive water vapor and bits of metal entered the atmosphere around the island and fell back onto its shores. The death toll was nearly 220 mutants. Men, women, and children all suffered from radiation sickness. Many developed cancer and spent the rest of their short lives in pain. The lucky ones were killed by falling bits of metal from the sky. What the government doesn't know is that some mutants, not many, but some of us, survived.